You lost good. Wow.
How'd you get here?
Here's something that may seem obvious. A photograph shows you what was in front of the camera. Point a camera at your friend, like a real camera, not a digital one. Click it. The photograph shows your friend. What could be simpler? The philosopher Willem Flusser argued this apparent simplicity hides a profound confusion, one that becomes more dangerous as images become more pervasive. So let's start with what Flusser called traditional images. Think about a painting, a drawing. Someone looks at a scene, interprets it, uses their hand to make marks on a surface that represent what they saw. Now, the image, obviously a mediation, a human interpretation of reality. I don't know anyone really who confuses paintings of a pipe with an actual pipe, as Magritte reminded us. But think about a photograph. It seems unmediated, as if reality left its imprint directly on the image. The camera pointed at your friend. Light bounced off your friend. Camera captured that light. The image shows what was there. No interpretation. There's no human mediation. That's just reality. Recorded perfectly. That's just kind of an illusion. Consider everything that shaped that photograph before you look at it, especially digital. The position and angle of the camera. That determines what's in frame and what's not. The lens, wide angle will distort differently than telephoto. Aperture and shutter speed affect like depth of field, motion blur. The sensor's characteristics in digital cameras, how that translates light into data. Color processing, like how the data becomes viewable colors on the other side. The file format will absolutely do this. What information is kept and what is discarded is what a file format does. If you're looking at it on a screen, the display parameters, right? Like, look at me now, the color calibration you've set up, the screen resolution, every one of these things involves choices, algorithms, technical processes. The photograph is not a transparent window onto reality. It's an output of a very complex apparatus, and the apparatus shapes the image more than we want to talk about. Now, traditional photography. This is kind of a minor point. Sure, cameras shape images, but it still shows something that was there in front of the lens. But let's consider what Flusser calls technical images. Images where the computational processes don't just capture, but also are part of the generation, like TikTok's infinite feed. What appears on your screen is the result of all of that, the position and settings of the camera, traditional stuff, all that, right? But also processing done by the phone's image software, smoothing, color enhancement, stabilization, filters applied by the app, face altering effects, slimming, sexy effects, color grading across the board, the compression applied for the upload, reducing file sizes, losing color and definition information, the platform's processing, which is usually further compression, format conversion, and reconversion, the recommendation algorithm that selected the video for you. Why are you seeing this video? Your device's rendering of the received file, your screen's display of that. At every stage, computational processes are shaping what the next stage gets. By the time the image reaches your eyes, it's been transformed by dozens of algorithmic operations. What you are seeing is absolutely not what was in front of that camera. It is what has emerged from a complex pipeline of technical processes. And here's Flusser's point. You experience this as if it were simply looking. You feel like you're just seeing something that happened. The technical mediation becomes invisible. This creates a really particular problem. With a painting, you know you're seeing someone's interpretation. You're naturally going to ask, well, whose perspective was this? Why did they choose this color to include or exclude? You will think about these things. How did their style shape what I'm seeing? With technical images, you do not ask these questions because the image feels direct. It feels like first-person evidence, like reality captured. It feels like truth, but it is something processed, filtered, algorithmically modified, and you cannot know how. You cannot tell by looking at it. Flusser wrote about this prophetically in the 1980s, the early 1980s. He wrote, "The critical reception of technical images demands a level of consciousness that corresponds to the level at which they are produced. To understand and properly see a technical image, not to be fooled by it, you need to understand the apparatus that produces it." The apparatus for us, though, is invisible. You see the image. You cannot see the camera, software, algorithms, platforms, display system, internet backbone, service provider, blah, blah, blah. Fuck. All of that. Understanding what you're looking at requires knowledge of complicated technical systems the image itself absolutely hides. And this gets way more extreme with AI-generated images. Now the image doesn't even point back to a scene that existed. The apparatus is a generative model trained on millions and billions of images, producing outputs that never existed anywhere except statistical patterning. What you see looks like a photograph. It has the visual coding of photography, but it's not a record of anything. It's computation dressed as observation. Flusser argued that we need to become image literate in a new way. Traditional literacy means learning to decode written symbols, understanding marks on a page and how they carry meaning and work together. Technical image literacy means understanding images carry encoded information too. The encoding is different. It's more deceptive. A written text doesn't pretend to be immediate. You know you're reading symbols that require decoding. A technical image pretends to be immediate. It pretends to be something that just happened, while being just as encoded, just as mediated, just as much the product of an apparatus with its own logic. There's a paradox here. The more realistic images become, super high resolution, better color, more detail, less mangled hands, the more dangerously they simulate direct perception. A low resolution, obviously artificial image is clearly a representation. High-resolution photorealistic images are looking out a window. But the photorealistic image is no less the product of apparatus, maybe more so. It hides it better. Flusser called for the consciousness of the apparatus, understanding every technical image is produced by systems with their own structures, their own interests, their own biases. The camera isn't neutral. Algorithms aren't neutral. Platforms aren't neutral. The act of taking a photograph rather than just looking at a thing means you're choosing to create a fixed, shareable, archivable object, and that choice has consequences. And this matters because we live in a world saturated with technical images. We navigate by Google or Apple Maps satellite imagery. We consume news through photos and videos with no end. We connect with others through these image feeds, and we understand current events through visual media. Most of the time, we treat these images as if they were just reality out our window, as if we were simply seeing a thing there. The more images mediate our experience of the world, the more important it becomes to understand how they are produced, not to become suspicious of all images. That's paranoia and paralysis. It's about maintaining awareness that looking at a technical image is not the same thing as looking at reality, even when it feels the same. Reading itself, alphabet, text, symbols, it trained us to know we were decoding. The challenge of technical images is they don't feel like codes to be deciphered. They feel like sight. And that's what makes them so effective and absolutely dangerous.
I could run through these halls forever if you like. Be trapped in this mall together if you like. I'd love to explore the corners if you like. The music plays so loud, guiding me where I go. vibrant crowd. Do you feel it too though? Maybe I'm just here